Good morning and welcome to the May 11th, 2018 meeting of the Subcommittee. Dr. Adams and also present are Drs. Eastman, Kidd, and Sozer, which constitutes a quorum. You've all received a drafted agenda for today's meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Make the motion.
Second.
Second. All in favor? It's unanimous. You've also received a draft copy of the minutes from both the November 3rd and December 1st meetings. Are there any questions or comments about those draft minutes?
No.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
Second. Okay. All in favor? Signify with the uplifted hand. Thank you. It's unanimous. Before we jump into the accreditation and laboratory updates, I had a couple of items to mention. First of all, we will be presenting Dr. Batzer with this plaque for his service 10 years on this committee, and that will be provided to him. Also, we have a letter from Dr. Zucker with he's the Commissioner of Health, who has recommended that Dr. Catherine Gettings be appointed to the subcommittee. Dr. Gettings has been with both Bodie and is currently with NIST in applied genetics. So she has quite a good resume, and I'll pass that resume around to each of you so that you can see that. Also, I want to mention just a moment regarding the passing of our friend and colleague, Dr. Eric Buell. He passed away on April 5th, 2018, following a long battle with lymphoma. Eric faithfully served the state of New York on this DNA subcommittee from 2010 until his death. I became personally acquainted with Eric in 1988 as he joined us in the FBI laboratory as one of 4 visiting scientists from a state lab to assist us in the development of DNA analysis methods. It was clear then, as it is now, why Eric was chosen from the many who applied. When Eric received the Paul L. Kirk Award in 2014, he stated, "As scientists, we aspire to learn and make improvements to the work we do for the communities we serve. We play an integral role in the criminal justice system. We understand that our efforts impact the community, and our work has true meaning to the citizens we serve." Eric lived those words and spent more than 30 years in this important work and made great contributions to the field he loved. Eric was a proven DNA leader in his home state of Vermont, here in New York, and nationally as he continued what he began in 1988 by building the Green Mountain DNA Conference. But Eric was more than a leader in DNA. Eric was a friend to all of us, a friendship we will long remember and cherish. From 1988 to today, the work of DNA analysts across this globe is better because of Eric, and all have benefited from working with him. On behalf of the DNA subcommittee members, we want to recognize the extraordinary work and life of Eric Buell and express to all that we will miss our friend. Next item on the agenda will be the accreditation and laboratory updates. All of these updates are for informational purposes only, and no vote is required. Members of the laboratories are either here in person or available by telephone if we have any questions. And we'll begin with the New York State Police.
Question. There's some discussion, and this is,
Can state police come to the table?
this is in the corrective action. This is on the reproducibility. I don't understand the SWIG-DAM thing, that the comment about SWIG-DAM being used in the verbiage in the write-up or something, but that's part of the corrective action.
Maybe it's just for our own
Reference to
clarification.
SWIG-DAM.
Which corrective action?
Has the number on
Was
it?
it the Y filer?
Yes, I think it's Y-filer.
Right.
But
It's on page 13 of our document, the red 13.
Fortunately, we don't have
You don't-
access
no, you
to
don't
pages,
have
so
that.
if you can just give us a pointer to get us to the right.
It's 4.11.2. Oh, that's your. Is there like a number on it? I'll read it to you. Supervision. It's on the column of root cause. Post completion of the reproducibility study, experimental and write-up, following the Y-filer plus validation proposal, tech leader instructed that reference be made to the SWIG-DAM validation guidelines to demonstrate consistency between the Y-filer plus and global filer internal validation studies. This reference was added verbatim to the opening paragraphs of the reproducibility study write-up. The Y-filer plus internal validation studies were prepared by, I won't mention any names, but and then it says in the column that is corrective action. For future validation studies, reference to the SWIG-DAM validation guidelines will not be made if the guidelines are not followed.
Right.
What's the distinction between SWIG-DAM and QAS?
There was some confusion with the auditors on this. We essentially, there's a SWIG-DAM guideline that talks about validation in general, and in there they have, guidelines about reproducibility, and I know there's accuracy and precision done by reproducibility or repeatability experiments.
Right.
So we just had an introductory paragraph stating that, as well as the QAS standard, just saying that we were adhering to the guidelines. Of course, these are guidelines, not standards, and so we did the repeatability, which is allowed by the QAS standards. But they said because we had that sentence in there about reproducibility, they also wanted to see the reproducibility experiments.
See, I interpret the QAS as when they say precision is a function of reproducibility and repeatability. But maybe it's because it's not spelled
Yeah,
out.
and actually, I talked to Clark Jaw about this, in the FBI, and he said no, because if you read the actual standard, the QAS standard, it does not, it's kind of vague about what it asks. And I know that the guidelines are being revised. In fact, the current version that has the public comments added is on the SWIG-DAM website. And if you notice, they've taken out this reproducibility, repeatability. So, I mean, we did reproducibility through repeatability for precision and accuracy. But however, we didn't need to put in that statement from the guidelines. But because we had it there, then they expected us to do also the reproducibility, which has to do with different operators on different instruments.
But don't you think doing that is probably a good idea
Oh, yes, definitely, yes.
to do in a validation?
So, again, that's why we went through, I didn't appeal it or anything, I just went through and did that part of it.
Yeah, it's like you guys did a whole lot of work. Okay, I had another, can we just, I've got several questions, but there's one, I have them in different parts of your remediation, or your corrective action. I just had a question about, this is concerning the macro. I don't understand, let's see, this is, I think, Irfan's memo, and it's on page 17 in the red of our documents.
How about if I pass this down to you? And then
I have it here on the
Yeah, there's
folder.
probably some extras around here.
we can share over here.
And it's under Section 6, subsequent to the interpretation of the evidence profile, a comparison using reference samples is conducted. A comparison will result in one of three possibilities. And then A is included. And under 1, say for evidence samples consisting of a single source or a major contributor to a mixture with 8 or more loci, an individual that demonstrates a positive association will be included and described as a matching donor. 8 loci being above your stochastic threshold.
8 loci is what we defined for a major contributor. So in other words, when we're calling for a major contributor, I think for global filer, it's at least 4 to 1 above the other peaks. That's considered a major contributor if it has at least loci that have that. It doesn't mean that the other loci aren't also consistent, but they're not necessarily a major contributor at 4 to 1.
What if there's inconsistencies in the loci that don't qualify to be among those 8
then there would
loci?
not be an inclusion. I mean, this is just for defining your interpretation, looking at the whole profile, all right, and saying, okay, now I see this many loci, I can call a 4 to 1 major contributor. So now I can call a major on this at those loci. However, the other loci have to also be consistent with the inclusion. It's just that we can't call it a major contributor in those loci.
Okay, yeah, that qualifier is not in there. It just kind of says if you have 8 loci that demonstrate a positive association. Oh, I understand now. I didn't understand the way it was stated here. There's not an additional sentence saying that there has to be consistency in the loci.
Yeah, and these were the recommended improvements that we had. I think it actually defines it in our actual protocol, how we do this interpretation. This was basically to define the 4 to 1 being a major contributor, and also for the multiple major as being significantly above the other alleles.
Right, yeah, okay. Got another question about D on page 19. I don't even know if this is relevant to us. It says, for additional information, see Joel Sutton, /Director, Ray Wickenheiser, Communication on February 27th. Is that even significant for us?
19? Oh, here, right here.
On restricted CPI.
So what there was some discussion, preliminary discussion of when they were first looking at a finding on sort of understanding from the auditors as to what we were doing. So we just reached out to an independent expert, Joel Sutton, being the head of the Swig Dam Mixture Interpretation Committee, just to provide some discussion points. And he in fact weighed in. So it's just sort of part of our supporting documentation for our position.
Okay.
So I think that's what it's referencing, just because he weighed in just to provide some independence. It's just sort of when you're trying to establish your position on anything, it's just point to some objective evidence of why you did this. And we reached out to him, and he provided that background. That's what it's referring to.
Okay. Now I'm jumping down to I call them disclaimers. You're footnoting. You're going to footnote because you have those general statements that no conclusion could be gotten or something.
No comparisons were possible.
Yeah, no comparison. That's starting on page 36.
Genetic complexity.
Yeah. I'm curious why, in these footnotes, why you don't just say why, or say, like, I'll give you an example. Single source partial profile. Due to insufficient genetic information, this partial profile is not suitable for comparison. And then you're going to footnote it. Evidentiary items may be deemed insufficient for comparison due to incomplete genetic profile recovery and or low DNA quantities. Why not just say why? Is it low DNA quantities, or is it incomplete genetic profile, or did you not reach your reporting standard of 8 or 6 or however many?
All that information is in the case folder. Okay, all the interpretation stuff. These reports are written for our clients, for police departments and for DA's offices. So we're trying to keep it, as least technical as possible so that they can understand it. Basically, the bottom line here is that we can't do any comparison. So it doesn't do any good to send us, suspect buccal swabs because we can't compare it anyway. That's the primary purpose for it. So I think we wanted to keep the conclusions concise rather than having, a report that has 5 pages of just all this information, which we feel they really don't need.
But,
Just to give you a little background, if I might weigh in a little bit. So previously, when we had inconclusives, we provided quite a number of more descriptive statements. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but in a previous audit, we had suggestions or findings that was too many, and it was confusing, and so we actually reduced the number. And then this time out, it was like, well, that needs to be more descriptive, so maybe increase the description. So ultimately, as an investigator, you really care that you didn't get a result. So how much additional information does the investigator need? So somewhere we're trying to find that balance. Each auditor group has a slightly different opinion. So their opinion was inconclusive, needed more description, so we've added to it.
well, I mean, my investigators and prosecutors aren't the only people who read these reports. The defense gets them too. And the thing is, the defense doesn't get the case file until often like just a day or a few days before they're going to trial. And it's, just stating why you couldn't interpret or you couldn't make a comparison in a report would make it a lot easier for them to see ahead of time, have at least, they get the reports a lot sooner than they get the case file.
Right.
What's the difference between an incomplete genetic profile recovery and or low DNA quantities? What's an incomplete genetic profile recovery?
Well, the two kind of go hand in hand, because if you don't get a full profile, well, why aren't you getting it?
Yeah.
You're getting it because it's degraded or you don't have enough DNA, but frankly, how do you really know? Because your profile is your only view into what was there in many cases. So you get a partial profile, you get very low peaks. Well, usually, why is that? Because you got degraded and not enough DNA.
I was just asking because it says or.
Well, I guess part of it is pretty difficult to tell, like, why didn't you get a full profile? Well, because you didn't have enough DNA, or it's not really good quality, or a combination of the two. So it's part of the difficulty is just how do you really tell why you didn't get a full profile? You didn't have much going in, and you knew it was probably compromised and didn't have much quality. So the two somewhat really are entwined and pretty hard to say it. Well, was it only because of quality, or was it because of quantity, or is a combination of the two?
Yeah, I think the wording could be improved slightly because of some confusion, but I don't see why it has to be a footnote.
Yeah.
Why can't it be just a second sentence, or actually not suitable for comparison because?
Our reporting or our profile threshold for making comparisons was not achieved or something. I don't know.
But I'm not sure it's worth spending a lot of time on the specific wording.
I mean, I'm doing it from maybe it's the defense perspective in that I've read a lot of reports and I've had a lot of questions of what does this mean,
So you're saying, Allison, it would expedite the process if a little more information was given?
Well, just expedite the process of trying to understand the DNA results on your client,
right?
Or on your case, and rather than having to wait until you can get the case file, and then you've got to get a DNA expert to dig through there to see just what exactly is, going on as to why this profile was not suitable for comparison. It would be helpful in just, I don't know, that's my opinion anyway.
We just felt the footnotes would be the most efficient way with our current, we write our reports within our LIMS system. So instead of having a lot of customization in the body of the report, we would have the analyst reference the footnote, which would be more generic. But as Russ stated, all the specific information is the case file. I understand what you're saying, but in terms of information to the defense, these are profiles that are not suitable for comparison. So what we had prior to this assessment is we had, due to insufficient resolution of the genetic information, no comparisons were made to this profile. So it was one statement that covered things that were too complex and things that were insufficient, like too partial. So the auditors felt that that one generic statement wasn't specific enough. So that's why we broke it down into, now we give information that it's too partial or that it's too complex. So we have two footnotes, one
Right.
dealing with complexity, one dealing with insufficient profiles. But so we are giving more information in the report, but we also are trying to avoid a lot of customization within the body of the report, because the profile really falls into one of those categories, and the footnote gives clarification as to what the conclusion is. But ultimately, these are profiles that are not suitable for any comparison to anyone.
But they are suitable for comparison by probabilistic genotyping, and in fact, we've had a situation where this kind of, the conclusion came out as couldn't make comparisons, but then the data went out to a private laboratory that does probabilistic genotyping, and then they come back with a comparison.
We will always provide a data disk of our electronic data whenever it's requested. But this is what we currently have for reporting standards. We are, as Russ has been working with an RFP to get probabilistic genotyping, but we have to work with what we have our disposal currently. So this is the footnotes that we have currently. It certainly will change once we have a probabilistic program.
Okay. I think I have, let's see what question number 2 is. What's the state? Oh yeah. And number 5 on page 78. Is this supposed to have a footnote, insufficient profiles? Everything's crossed out. Is there a footnote that's going with that? A profile with less than 8 loci detected will be interpreted as insufficient. But then the note, analysts will use the, ins conclusion, but that's all crossed out on my thing. Is there a footnote for this, or?
Russ, do you want to look at?
I think we have it here.
Oh, you have it?
Yeah.
No, that's showing the updates, Brad.
Yeah, this is a draft. I mean, it's highlighting what we changed in response to our corrective actions. So the parts that's crossed out are the parts that have been replaced.
So, you see the note underneath this? Okay, do you have a conclusion statement says that this profile is insufficient for comparison or something like that?
Page 78.
Page 78, number 5, insufficient profiles.
She's talking about.
Yeah. Then there's a note here that's got one, it's underlined and then it's crossed out. Underlined in red and crossed out in purple. Yours isn't in color.
I think, yeah, right.
No, I see
right.
it,
We see
yeah.
it. I think it's.
This is at the end of the section or something.
Is your page the same as mine? Number 5.
Yeah, I think it's included in another part of that protocol. It's hard to read this one because it has all the track changes, the crossouts. I think that's why it's crossed out, because it's appearing somewhere else. But
Okay.
at this point, because it's just referring to the note, the INS footnote that was added because of the audit.
Yeah, we were asked to provide a version of the protocol that highlighted specifically what we had changed, and I guess what's challenging for us is this is not our final version of the protocol, so we have to go, it is somewhere else, because we absolutely have had training, having our analysts use the new conclusions with the footnotes. It's just.
I think it's in a reporting section.
It could be. Yeah, it's definitely in the protocol.
There's that chart.
Oh, it might be on, let's see. I bet if you look on page 154, Allison,
Red, 154 in red.
154 in red.
See it?
Is that where it ends up showing? Look,
Okay.
Right.
go down.
Right, and that's a DNA reporting
Yeah.
template.
Yeah, so it looks like it's added like halfway through.
Uh-huh.
I think that's probably where you added it. You took it out of where the interpretation and put it in reporting.
Okay.
That's what it looks like to
Because
me.
we were also trying to summarize all the things specific to analysts writing their reports in
Yeah.
one section, just to make it easier for them to follow.
And also, we have a LIMS component where we have the report writing conclusions all in there, so, I mean, it's not a simple process to get those incorporated.
Yep.
That was part of that process too, so they actually have them in the LIMS as pull downs to include in the reports, when they're writing the reports in the LIMS.
Yeah,
So
the
they
LIMS
have-
modifications were part of our corrective action, where the LIMS will now, when the analyst selects that footnote, it will automatically apply the footnote there, so.
Okay.
So the analyst cannot cite the footnote. I mean, I'm not quite getting when the footnote is cited and why it's a
Well,
footnote.
it's linked to a particular conclusion statement.
Okay,
So it's automatic. So they select a conclusion, it has the footnote is automatically applied by our LIMS system. So they are required to use the footnote.
So you do the conclusion, then you have two different footnotes probably, is that
Well,
right?
there's two,
Or the two,
different
yeah.
conclusions. One deals with too complex, one deals with too partial. And the end of the actual statement, it says either INS, which brings up the insufficient footnote, or CLX,
Yes.
which brings up the complex
okay, so
footnote.
that's the option that.
Yes,
that-
yes.
So if you have
Okay.
two conclusions different, when they both have that, then they would appear both at the bottom of that page. So it's just one or the other, it would just have one.
Just one other thing on 74, CLX. Do you want deconvoluted capitalized? Bottom of 74, the CLX footnote that's in red. Is it still there on?
Yeah.
Do you want deconvoluted capitalized? Is it
Yeah, it shouldn't be.
Oh,
I don't think it is in our current version. In our LIMS version, I don't remember seeing
Might
that
have
in the
been
reports.
changed.
Yeah.
I read this thing.
There you go.
You sure did.
It's what you do when you retire.
We appreciate the level of
We should
detail.
give it to you for proofreading.
Yeah. I believe that was noticed and updated prior to.
But we'll
this.
double check to
Yeah.
make sure.
If not,
And
you can
we'll
update
correct
it the
it.
next time you update it. You can update it.
Let's see, do I have any more? That's it for me.
Anyone else with regard to New York State Police? I misspoke earlier when I said that there were no votes required. There will be a vote required for both the New York State Police and Suffolk County, because both dealt with corrective action from an ANAB assessment, which issued the accreditation certificate. So do I have a motion to issue a binding recommendation to the Commission on Forensic Science to renew the New York State accreditation of the New York State Police Laboratory in the discipline of biology for the period concurrent with their ANAB accreditation? Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor? Uplifted hand. It's unanimous.
Okay.
Thank you.
On behalf of New York State Police, thank you for your extremely thorough vetting of our documents.
It's a lot of work.
thank you.
A lot of work.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Next up will be Suffolk County Crime Laboratory. We have a representative in person if there are any comments or questions. Want to come to the table? Will you identify yourselves for the record?
Helen Wall, technical leader of the Suffolk County Crime Laboratory.
Diane Skudich, Biological Sciences Supervisor, Suffolk County Crime Laboratory.
Thank you.
the FBI threw out the finding on the QAS document, but you're keeping your newly revised mixture interpretation guidelines, right?
That is correct. We had to for our ANAB accreditation. We appealed it and they denied it, so we had to come up with the corrective action. At the time, we already revised our protocol to go through our validation with these new rules.
When they denied it, did they know that the FBI had overturned
I
the?
think the time difference was very different. Yeah. ANAB denied us in October of 2017, and NDIS overturned the finding in January of 2018.
Okay. I have a question about one of the you reinterpreted some cases, and it's just case 3. On your original case, item 2.3.1 is a male, and on your amended case or reinterpreted case, item 2.3.1 is a female. Did something get mixed up?
Let me see. I think 2.3.1 should be inconclusive.
On the original, let's see.
2.3.1 on the original, the sperm fraction was a male. 2.3.1, the non-sperm fraction was inconclusive, and that was the one that was reanalyzed, the non-sperm fraction.
Okay. All right. That explains it. And then on your, you just reinterpreted
the inconclusive.
Okay. All right. That was my question. That's it. I think that was it.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Hearing none, do I have a motion to issue a binding recommendation to the Commission on Forensic Science to renew the New York State accreditation of the Suffolk County Crime Laboratory in the discipline of biology for the period concurrent with their ANAB accreditation? Thank you, Dr. Eastman. Second? Dr. Kidd? All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Very much.
Next is Erie County Department of Central Police Services. We have them by phone if needed.
No questions on this.
Nothing?
I have no question.
Dr. Sozer? Moving on to Monroe County Crime Laboratory.
No questions.
Hearing none. Nassau County.
No.
None. The New York City OCME. And we have representatives in person if needed.
No questions.
Nope.
Hearing none. Onondaga County.
Nope.
And then finally, the 2017 annual lab summaries, beginning on page 990. Any comments, any questions?
I like these documents. I mean, it's nice having everything laid out. So.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is for old business. Jerry, can you give us an update on the New York State partial match program?
Sure. These numbers are as of May 8th of this year. So since the initiation of the process of the partial match program, 92 names were requested as a result of the partial match analysis. In 44 of those, further evaluation could not confirm any information or names. 48 names were released. 46 of the cases related to the request have been closed. 2 are still active. There's been 1 arrest made in a murder case on Suffolk County and 1 conviction.
Questions?
So those are not the active ones. Those are the ones.
Yeah, the conviction is under the category of closed.
Where was the conviction? What county?
Suffolk County. Bitroff was the name of the defendant.
Anything else? Partial match? Next, I'll ask for an update on familial search.
So, and again, this is of May 8th. We've received 14 applications. They relate to a variety of murder, rape, and rape-murder cases. Review is ongoing in 3. 2 of the applications were rejected, although 1 was an immediate resubmission because it was labeled the wrong sample. And we have 9 that have been approved by the commissioner and gone to the next step, which is a memorandum of understanding among DCJS, the prosecution, the police agency, and we've only gotten to the stage where 1 is through that MOU stage and is now in progress.
Questions?
Were all 14 applications from different locations?
No, not entirely. A number of them came out of the New York Police Department.
Okay.
They're from across the state, a number of different counties and policies.
Other questions?
When will that 1 be worked?
It's in process. That's all I can tell you because, of course, that's all the state police will tell us at this point, given the proper boundaries of what they're doing.
Which apply some places still.
Okay, we'll now move to new business. On page 1010, you all received a memorandum from Jerry dated April 6, 2018, providing results from the DNA Databank security audits. Comments or questions related to that memo?
So everything's been fixed that had to be fixed. Is that right?
That's what it looks like.
Yes.
The last sentence says
Yeah.
all the corrections have been made.
Okay. So it's annual? This is done once a year, or?
As of beginning last year, yes.
Yeah, okay, because I was going to say, I don't remember seeing this before.
Our annual as of
Previously-
2017. Kathy can speak
Yeah,
to it.
previously it was done, there was several years, it was done by the internal audit out of DCJS.
Okay.
But OFS took it over in 2017, and the 2018 audits have been scheduled already and will be completed by June.
Kathy is going to be on the road.
Okay. We'll now move into laboratory disclosures. If I'm correct, there will be no votes required for this information because it is for information only. We have members of the laboratories either available in person or by phone if necessary. We'll begin with Erie County.
I don't have any.
That disclosure was related to proficiency testing, and the newest results we got showed that that was all cleared up. Any comments?
One comment, page 1016, right in the middle of the large paragraph at the top. The placement of the word however following with a semicolon following and a no comma in front makes it very ambiguous. It's a grammatical point.
What page is that again? Which page?
1016. So it's kind of a trivial grammatical point, but it happens again on page 1036, but that's a different report. Just a comment.
Okay. Next, Monroe County Crime Laboratory.
Is anybody here from Monroe?
No, but I can call.
Yeah, I have a question.
Hello, this is Ellen.
Hi, Ellen. This is Shelley Palmer at the DNA Subcommittee meeting. The members have a few questions regarding your lab disclosure.
Okay.
Hi, Alan.
Hi.
This is Allison. I have a question on your root cause analysis with the kinship thing.
Okay.
And I'll read. Do you have it in front of you?
I do have the documents in front of me.
Okay, it's, let's see, is there a page number on?
She won't have the page numbers.
It's page 4 of 8 of your page numbering at the top.
Page 1, 2.
What page are you on, Allison?
1038.
Is it a table that says
Yes.
has analysis at the top?
Yes, and it's number 21. It's the very top box. And it says, and
I guess I'm not doing the same thing as you are.
oh,
Because I have pages 1 and 2, and then there's 1 through 8 of our documents, and I don't think it's correlating with your page numbers.
well, I'm reading you your page number. It says
It's
page 4 of 8
4 of 8. Oh.
of your corrective action.
4 of 8. Okay, I apologize. I'm there. Number 21. What was done, what needs to be done to prevent reoccurring?
Yeah. It says an email was sent to all DNA technical reviewers on 2/13/18 that when verifying PopStats results, they should not use original analysts' PopStats results to perform the new calculation. They should perform the calculation independently using the electropherogram, the allele table, or the comparison worksheet. Mm-hmm. And my question is, why isn't this person doing an independent read of the profile and using that profile from their independent read? This is reading the electropherograms, doing the PopStats, and then seeing if it correlates or if it matches what the primary analyst got.
Yes, and that's what I was trying to get across to them, that you shouldn't just take the printout from the original analyst PopStats, but either the worksheet that they generated, or because the independent, let me back up. As part of tech review, they do perform their own GeneMapper IDX program or project, but the tech reviewer does not print out anything from that. So it's not like they have a table from that which they then could use and then go to PopStats. So what they would do is they would do their independent analysis at GeneMapper IDX, see that they got the same results as the primary analyst, check out the primary analyst's allele table, and then they could use that allele table, if they agree with it, to then go to PopStats and do their own independent data with PopStats.
Okay.
That make sense?
That makes sense. That was my question. That's the only question I had, except that I was hoping you'd be here and bring Colleen's pumpkin bars that were.
I will pass that on to her.
Other questions? Moving on to Nassau County.
Thank you, Ellen.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thanks, Ellen.
Yep, bye.
This was the sperm misidentification.
We'll call them.
Oh. Yeah, I have a question for that one, too. Are they here?
They're going to be called.
Hi, Sandy. This is Shelley Palmer at the DNA Subcommittee meeting.
Hi, how are you?
Good. The members have a few questions about your lab disclosure.
Okay, sure.
Hi, this is Allison.
Hi.
I have a question about, so you have people training reading smear slides. Is that, am I understand, these people are not signed off as being, or competency tested or proficiency tested reading smear slides?
So there is no proficiency test for reading smear slides. That they did complete training as far as competency tested, but we have a window where we have trainees be checked with sperm searches.
So it says it's a forensic scientist trainee was misidentifying sperm in smears. Now is this is. And it went into a report. So are they signing the report, or who's signing the report?
Yes, but we have trainees who are signed off as casework examiners. They are signed off as interpreting analysts, as well as if they were performing a differential extraction procedure. That would also be a means by which possibly another examiner was signing a laboratory report, but if they had performed a differential extraction procedure and there was sperm visualized during that procedure.
I guess the question is, why are they called trainees?
Yeah, why are they being called trainees then?
It's a job title. They get brought on as a trainee, they complete their training, and they become interpreting analysts during that time period, and then they will eventually get promoted up. But that's just a job title. The way that the series was installed, the civil service series.
So if I get this right, the forensic science trainee is competency tested in sperm searches, and the person or so this particular person is actually a competent sperm identifier.
They're competent. They were competency tested in the differential extraction procedure, which includes visualizing sperm. However, we do have a time window period where we have trainees be witness.
And was
beyond that window, because you don't know how many extractions they may be performing during that procedure. So we do extend that window out where we have them supervised or their visualization of sperm checked beyond that window.
And the person who, so was there a supervising forensic scientist supervising this forensic scientist trainee who's doing these sperm searches? And was this person under supervision, or was this person just able to do the searches and report the results?
Well, I mean, I think that will all become more clear once the incident is closed out, and you know, we're still in that phase where we're determining root cause. So it's hard to speak to, you know, exactly with all that until we have our final analysis done.
Do you know approximately when will it be all done by our next meeting? And
for certain, yes, it should be closed out. I know Karen, our quality manager, has been working on it over the course of the last couple of weeks, trying to close everything out. So it would definitely be completed by the next meeting for sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. No problem. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
New York City OCME is next. One question I have, were the corrective actions completed by the dates that were indicated? I think they're on our page 1111. That would be your page 7 of 12.
Well, there is an updated, it should be it. Yes, I do believe that, that these timelines were met.
Okay. Other comments or questions? No. Hearing none, we'll move on to the New York State Police. I have one question regarding the memo dated February 6th. Says that you're currently conducting root cause analysis. That's on page 1129 of our document. That was from Mr. Gestring to me, a memo, and I'm wondering if you have the results of the root cause analysis completed.
Page 1129.
Yes. This dealt with the non-conformance of database sample, an incorrect DNA match.
1129.
Okay. So we did issue a letter just notifying the commission or accrediting body because there was a mishit. And through our investigation, we determined it was not within state police, that particular reason for that being that, in fact, there was an issue in DCGS in terms of the sample switch, which has since been corrected. So given that it's outside of our purview, but at the time, you know, we just felt it was reasonable to provide the notification because we still had to do investigation internally just to see where it occurred. So given that it's outside our purview, that is being conducted by DCGS, but not by us, but we just felt it'd be under an abundance of caution that we would just say, well, this occurred. We did look at our own processes, and it was external to us.
It was actually detected during our normal quality control processes. We run offender-to-offender searches on a weekly basis, sometimes more frequently, and this was detected during one of our offender-offender searches, where two profiles matched. But when there was an examination of one of the samples, it was determined that the offender information on that submission card for one of the samples was not consistent with the fingerprints. So at that point, we've had communication with DCJS, and it was determined to be a collection error. According to our technical leader, Tom Leach, he did attend a stakeholders meeting that was held at Division of Criminal Justice Services on April 18th and 19th, and that's part of their root cause analysis and latent cause analysis. And there were a series of action items that were identified. There are no action items at this time for the New York State Police.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up will be Westchester Division of Forensic Services. And this also dates back to our November meeting where we asked for an update regarding smoothing and DNA instrument settings. Any questions or comments for Westchester? Get them on the phone.
Good morning, Forensic Lab.
Good morning. Is Elaine?
No, this is Mary. Elaine's right here.
Oh, okay. This is Shelley from the subcommittee meeting. There's a few questions.
Sure. Okay, Shelley.
Hi, good morning. This is Elaine Schwartz.
Hi, Elaine. This is Allison. This is regarding your smoothing.
Yes.
With Gene Mapper IDX.
Yes.
I can't remember whether you reported about it the last time. You were going to reanalyze cases. How many cases were involved, and what happened with your reanalysis?
We identified 25 cases that we reprocessed that had comparisons with statistics. And of those 25 cases, 12 of them required amended reports due to a change in the statistics. We also reprocessed 19 cases that had either gone to grand jury or we had prepared Rosario packets for.
And so was there really a significant difference? I mean, how many? I mean, I'm assuming.
Yeah, the 12 of the cases, the stats changed. They changed anywhere from twofold to like 1,000-fold. So we issued amended reports, and we notified the DA's office. We provided them a list with all of those cases.
Now, what are you doing to lock down your analysis parameters?
Okay, so we put a couple of things in place. Previously, we did not have it locked, GeneMapper IDX, we did not have it locked. Now we have administrative rights, and only 2 people have access to that. We also created a separate analysis method for troubleshooting, where it's a whole different panel that you would select that's on its own, separate from our casework panel. And the third thing that we did was we established a new quality control measure where we actually check all the analysis parameters on all of our instruments on a quarterly basis, and we've done that twice since this incident happened.
And you haven't seen any recurrences or any other?
No, we have not.
Can you explain the separate analysis panel, what that is?
Yes. When you go into GeneMapper IDX, you have to choose which method you want to use. Like if you have a run that's global filer, you have to make sure you choose the panel that says global filer. If you have a run that's Y filer, you have to choose the Y filer panel. And so we created another separate one called troubleshooting. So if you don't select the right panel, say you have a global filer run and you select the Y filer panel, you're going to know something's wrong because it's not going to work correctly. Your ladder is not going to work correctly.
So there's no possibility that somebody's going to pick the troubleshooting one by accident when they're analyzing casework data, is there?
No. I think you would notice it because the troubleshooting one doesn't have the threshold set correctly. I mean, it doesn't have it set for casework. Right now it's set at 0. So you would notice that you would have a lot of peaks called because the threshold wouldn't be set at 100, which is our normal casework threshold. And it's also at the top of the project which panel you choose. So it's printed out on the electropherogram.
On your tech review checklist and maybe on your primary review checklist, if you have one, do you have something on there that to verify correct analysis method was employed?
We have a second analyst reanalyze the project. So we have 2 different people processing the project before it's given out, before it's put into a case jacket for interpretation.
Okay. Okay.
Other comments, questions?
Yes, this is Ken. Can you elaborate a bit on why the statistics changed 2-fold to 1,000-fold?
Yes. With the smoothing set to none, the peaks are a little bit higher than they would be if the smoothing was set to light. So we had, during that time period, when the smoothing was set to none, the peaks in some of the profiles went above our analytical threshold. So when we reprocessed the run, some of the peaks fell below the analytical threshold. And it didn't happen on every case. It only happened on samples that had peaks close to the analytical threshold. If we had a really strong peak, a really strong sample, there was no effect, whether we had the smoothing on none or on light. So what happens in these cases is that some of the loci could not be used for statistical purposes. So we saw in these 12 cases, we saw a difference in the number of loci that were eligible for statistics. And that's why the statistics changed, because if 1 or 2 loci drop out of the profile, that would change the statistics.
Right. In the case of 1,000-fold, in what range was that? Because if it's a difference between -5 and -8 as an exponent, that's meaningful. But if it's -15 to -18, it's not very meaningful.
In all of these examples, I'm just trying to find the sheet. We had numbers, most of these samples, most of these cases, we had stats quadrillion, septillion, sextillion. They were all very high numbers. There was only one that was in the millions.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
The next item on the agenda is the executive session. Can I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss matters relating to a current investigation or matters that may lead to the appointment, promotion, discipline, or suspension of a particular individual.
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Kidd. Second by Dr. Eastman. All in favor? Unanimous? At this point, if you're not a DNA subcommittee member or staff, I would like to ask you to please leave the room.
There's nothing else.
They don't need to do any favor?
No.
You're good. Thank you.
Safe travels.
Gare?
Okay, I would like to go back on the record and report that no action was taken in executive session. The next meeting for the DNA subcommittee will be August 3rd, 2018 in New York City. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Dr. Eastman, a second. Dr. Sozer, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? Thank you. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
So how do you change your ticket over the phone?
Talk to Julie, the automated Amtrak lady. She's quite pleasant. Or you keep hitting 0 until you get a real person on the phone.
I'll just go and talk to a person.
Yeah.
They're usually pretty quick.